ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Constel English. This is your host, Ruth Alido. Last week, you watched the episodes on study skills focusing on outlining and its sub-skills. Today, we will show you techniques and strategies for reading in the content areas. What is meant by reading in the content areas? Let's listen to a conversation of two teachers. One is a math teacher and the other a reading teacher.
How's your math class? Well, generally fine. Lately, however, I'm having a problem. On what? We are on word problems. It seems a number of them have to read right before coming to a correct solution. Is that so? Really, I have to do a lot of mediation for the students to comprehend the problem. Can I help? Sure. In fact, that is the reason why I requested for a brief conference with you. I'm happy to hear that. There's a lot of reading that takes place in mathematics. Indeed, we should work together. Meanwhile, give me a little time to go over the students' math books and samples of their worksheets. Oh, that's fine. Then confer once more and plan some specific action points. All right.
The math and reading teachers engage in collaborative effort to help students in their math reading problem. They discuss students' problems and map out activities to help them. The next classroom scene is an offshoot of the discussion and planning effort. One of the difficulties that students experience when reading math is realizing that the information they need to solve a problem is found in the wording of the problem. A reading guide can be devised based on the problem which the students can complete as they read the problem.
Now, I want you to come to the board, Ali, and check the statements that contain the important facts under column A, and under column B, check the statements that will help you solve the problem.
This exercise will enable the students to analyze and understand their problems better. It will also help them find the right solution to the problem. We as teachers can use a technique to help students solve word problems. This approach helps students identify the process or processes for solving a problem. The technique involves the following steps. First, survey the problem out loud and try to visualize the situation. Second, solve the problem. But how are we going to do this? We'll find out after this break. Stay tuned. Let's go back to the math class and see how the teacher uses the technique.
Sheo, would you read the problem aloud, please?
You bought a used car 2 years ago for 40,200 pesos. Since then, you have driven it 17,500 miles. You kept a record of all your car expenses. During the first year of insurance, 3,600, tune-up, 650, license 100, repair clutch 200, gas 4,800. During the second year, the license cost 100 pesos, the repair brakes 300, tune-up was 700, Insurance was 4,000. And the gas was 5,000.
Now, what is the problem? Miguel?
The problem is, what was the average cost per mile to own and operate your car?
So, what are the given facts? Marvin?
Ma'am, the car is second-hand, bought for 40,200 pesos 2 years ago. The person drove it for 17,500 miles. It also includes the expense record of the last 2 years.
Okay. Now, what is the problem asking you to find? Marv?
Ma'am, I have to determine the average cost per mile. In order to own and run the car, this means I will do averaging.
But now, how will you solve the problem? Dennis?
Ma'am, I will use two processes. First, I will add all the expenses to find the total expense. Then, I will divide the total expenses by the total number of miles the owner has driven over the last 2 years.
Very good. Who will solve the problem? Ali, okay? Here, okay?
I will add all the expenses. $40,200 plus 3,600 plus 650 plus 100 plus 200 plus 4,800 plus 100 plus 300 plus 700 plus 4,000 plus 5,000
Okay.
is 59,650 pesos.
Can you add the peace sign here? Good. Good.
Then I will divide the total expenses by the number of miles driven, which is
500. So what was your answer?
the answer to the problem is 3.40 as the average cost per mile to own and operate the car.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Sit down now. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So you have the answer here, 3.40. Now, what were the processes used, okay, to solve the problem? Do you have any idea? Troy?
Ma'am, addition and division. He had to determine the average cost by adding and dividing.
Okay. No, but what was added and what was divided? Ali?
I added the expenses for operating the car and the cost of the car when the owner bought it. Then I divided the total expenses from the number of miles the owner drove the car.
Okay.
The teacher has taught the students to analyze the problem, go through the data given, and then the solution. Her technique, which was a step-by-step analysis of the problem and solution, helped the students solve the problem. This is reading in the content areas, and the content focused on is math. Let's go back to the classroom and see the rest of the lesson.
Class, let's take another problem and see if you can solve this. Take this down. A piece of sheet metal is 2 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. What will the piece weigh if 1 square meter weighs 1.5 kilograms? Okay, I will repeat the question. A piece of sheet metal is 2 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. what will the piece weigh if 1 square meter weighs 1.5 kilograms? Okay, but I want you to draw the diagram first on the board, Alex. Yes. Okay. Oops. Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. Now, class, look at the board. What are the facts given? Yes, Jason.
Measurement of the metal, ma'am.
Okay, now what are the measurements? Rico.
Its length is 2 meters while its width is 1.5 meters.
Very good. Okay, now, do you have any other facts? Marvin?
The weight is 1.5 kilograms per square meter.
Okay. How do we solve this problem?
The problem is, what will the piece of sheet metal weigh?
Oh, okay. But how do we solve this problem? Yes, Miguel?
Ma'am, first we get the area of the sheet metal.
How do we do this?
We multiply the length by its width. 2 multiplied by 1.5 is 3. The area of the sheet metal is 3 square meters.
How do we find this way? Alex?
Ma'am, we look for the weight by multiplying the area of 3 square meters by 1.5 kilograms.
Okay, come to the board and solve it. Don't turn your back.
1.5 times 3 is 4.5.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
The teacher has taught the class how to solve the problem by analyzing the facts and going through the solution step by step. Another content area is science. Let us now go to a science class that is discussing the ecosystem.
Now, class, look at the picture. Now, when you look at the picture, what comes to your mind? Venice.
Baguio.
Baguio. Okay. Who else? Marv.
Yes, refreshing.
Refreshing. Jason.
It's cool.
Cool. Okay. Dale.
Unpolluted.
Unpolluted. Okay. Now, when I say the word environment, what comes to your mind? Lloyd.
Trees.
Trees. Alex.
Mountains.
Mountains. Rico.
Rivers.
Rivers. Alex.
Animals.
Animals. Mark.
Yes, flowers.
The teacher is activating the schema of the students as part of the pre-reading exercise. One way of doing this is by showing a picture or visual aid. Another is by brainstorming.
Let's read something about the ecosystem. Okay, look at your readings, class. But who would want to read it aloud? Okay, Ali, you read the first paragraph. What about the second paragraph? Venice. Okay, second paragraph. The third, Marv. Fourth, Alex. Okay, and the last paragraph, Jason. Ali.
An ecosystem is an interacting unit or system consisting of groups of organisms and their non-living or physical environment. The living organisms, plants, animals, protists, are referred to as biotic components. The non-living portions or abiotic components include water, carbon dioxide, soil, and physical factors such as wind and temperature.
Venice.
Every ecosystem needs energy, which generally comes from the sun. This energy is used by producers, whose function is to make energy-rich compounds through the process of photosynthesis. Producers are mainly green plants, which contain chlorophyll necessary for photosynthesis. Thus, algae, trees, and grass are producers.
Sure. Mark. Okay.
Organisms which are self-feeding are autotrophic, while organisms which feed on others are heterotrophic. Consumers are heterotrophic because they feed on producers. Plant-eating animals or herbivores such as cows, rabbits, and grasshoppers are called primary consumers. Secondary consumers, which are also first-order carnivores, are those who eat herbivores such as snakes, foxes, and insect-eating birds. They still derive their energy, though indirectly, from producers. Tertiary consumers, or second-order carnivores, such as hawks and wildcats, eat secondary consumers.
Okay, Alex.
At the end of the food chain are the decomposers. These organisms feed on decaying tissues of producers and consumers on their organic waste. In the process of feeding, they release nutrients, which can be used by producers. Decomposers include bacteria, fungi, and small animals.
Jason.
So, the life forms in an ecosystem are linked together in a predator-prey relationship called food chain. The food chain follows this pattern: producer, herbivore, first-order carnivore, second-order carnivore, and decomposer.
Okay, now, look at the words on the board and let's examine them. Okay. Now, the word biotic means living organisms. But if you add A to biotic, okay, what do you think this refers to? Any ideas? Yes, J.O.?
Non-living factors.
Okay, non-living factors. Now, what about the word autotrophic and heterotrophic? Lloyd, okay?
Auto means self and hetero means other.
Okay, auto means self and hetero means others. So autotrophic means self-feeding, while heterotrophic means feeding on others.
One of the difficulties of reading in content area is the vocabulary. We shall discuss this further after a few reminders. Stay tuned. Welcome back. As we said earlier, one of the difficulties of reading in content area is the vocabulary. Many words in the content areas are in technical terms. These are words representing specific concepts applicable to specific content subjects. One method of unlocking difficulties in vocabulary building is by analyzing word structure. Prefixes and suffixes, when added to root words, change their meanings. For example, words like a, meaning without, such as asexual, or contra, meaning against, contradict, de, for reverse, decompose, dis, for negation, disbelief, in, not, invalid. Some prefixes indicate number or size, like bi for two, such as bicycle, mono for one, monologue, poly, many, polynomial. Some prefixes indicate possessions, like a for without, abiotic, anti, against, antichrist, circum, around, circumference. Other prefixes have their own meanings, like auto for self, carni, meat, hetero, other, herby, plants. Another vocabulary exercise is an association activity. The teacher gives a word and then asks the students to supply related words. This enables them to expand their vocabulary. Let's go back to the classroom and see how the teacher teaches this to his or her class.
Okay, everybody stop writing. Okay, now you have to give your words to your group leader. Okay, give your words now. Okay, do it fast. Okay. Okay. So who are your group leaders? Okay. And for the other group, who's the group leader? Okay, Marvin. So Ali and Marvin, come to the board and write the words. Here. Okay, thank you.
Predator. Vulture, animal eater, stalker, greedy animal.
Organic, growing, animate, biological, living.
Okay.
Still another vocabulary exercise that can be done in the classroom is a classification activity. This time, the teacher prepares slips of papers with words written on them, then gives this to the students. She asks the students to go around and look for the words that go together to form the same classification, and then write the words together as a group.
Look at this. I have slips of papers with me. So what I want you to do is to get one slip of paper, and then you have to read the word. Okay? Now when you read the word, I want you to look for your group mates who have the same classification as yours. Okay, did you understand? Okay, okay. So now get your slips of paper. One by one, please. Hurry. Lloyd. Marvin. Who else doesn't have a slip of paper? Okay, Miguel. Just form your groups. Look for your group mates. Okay, now that you have your group, I want you to choose your group leaders. Okay, choose your group leaders now, and then you give your words to your group leaders. Okay, give your words. Okay, so who's your group leader here? Okay, Miguel. Miguel, write the words. Okay. Temperature. What else do you have? Wind. Oh. Carbon dioxide. Okay. You through? Okay. Now, why do you think these words belong together?
Ma'am, because they're all non-living things.
Okay. Thank you, Miguel. Okay, you may take your seat. What about the other group? Who's your group? Okay. Lloyd, write down the words too. Here. Okay. Okay, horse. Okay, so why do you think they belong to the same group?
Because all of them are living things.
Living things. We all agree?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What you have just seen are vocabulary exercises which you can do with your students using the content of science. You can do similar exercises in the fields of history or other content areas to help your students comprehend the reading materials better. Now, let's see what strategies you can adopt to help the students comprehend and remember while reading the text. While reading the text, ask them to fill in some diagrams to map out the information. Through these diagrams, they will see the relationship among ideas in the text. The teacher can also raise questions based on the diagrams.
Give examples of living things. Venice?
Plants, animals, and man.
Okay, what about non-living things? Let's see. Alex?
Water, soil, and wind.
Okay, now, look at the diagram. Okay, so from this diagram, okay, what are the plant-eating animals or herbivores? Let's see, Lloyd.
Cows, rabbits, and grasshoppers.
Okay, now what about the first order carnivores? Any idea? J.O.?
The snakes, the birds, and foxes.
Okay, and then from this diagram also, okay, what do the decomposers feed on? Let's see. Mark?
From the diagram, the decomposers feed on producers and consumers.
The teacher and students analyze the text through a diagram, a technique which is very effective strategy that can be used in scientific texts as well as other technical texts that lend themselves to the use of graphic organizers. Another method that can be adopted while reading the text is the use of discourse analysis. In this particular text, the rhetorical structuring is one of definition and classification. The teacher can give this useful exercise in defining concepts given in the text. The formal definition is term equals class plus characteristics or function. Definitions are given by giving the class the characteristics or functions of the term. For example, consumers are organisms which feed on producers. Another one is herbivores are organisms which feed on plants.
Okay, class. Rico, can you give the definition of food chain?
The food chain is a process that shows how living and non-living things depend on one another for food.
Okay, so from that definition, what is the term?
Food chain.
Okay, food chain. What about the class?
The food chain is a process.
Okay, very good. The food chain is a process. Now, what is its function or characteristic?
It shows how living and non-living things depend on each other for food.
Okay, very good. Sit down.
Wasn't that interesting? What you will see next, that will be flashed on the screen, is a set of statements with blanks that need to be filled in by students. Let's go back then to the classroom and see how the teacher conducts the exercise.
Let's do another activity for definition. I will give you the word that you just read from the text, and you will have to fill up the blanks using the formula for definition. Now, what is that formula? Again, the term is equal to class plus characteristic or function. Okay. Now, copy these words, okay, and then answer it. Fill up the blanks. So, number 1, ecosystem. Number 2, producers. Number 3, heterotrophic. So again, term is equal to class plus characteristic or function. Okay. difficult? Are you through? Are you all through? Okay, so who can read the answers aloud? Number 1, ecosystem. Lloyd.
Ecosystem is an interacting unit or system consisting of groups of organisms in their non-living or physical environment. Examples are plants, animals, water, etc.
Okay, what about producers? Kit.
Producers are green plants whose function is to make energy-rich compounds through the process of photosynthesis. Green plants are the example.
Green plants are the example. Heterotrophic. Marv.
Heterotrophic organisms are consumers which feed on producers. Examples are animals like horses, cows, etc.
Giving definitions is only one type of rhetorical device. Other types that you may encounter in content areas are descriptions, comparison and contrast, and cause and effect.
Kit, would you like to look outside and describe what you see?
This is a tree that has a lot of leaves, branches, and twigs. It also provides shade for travelers. It prevents floods and erosion and contributes oxygen for a healthy environment.
Okay, very good.
What the student has done is a static description. He gave the parts and functions of a tree. Static description is used for people, places, or things. We shall take up another kind of description after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Another kind of description that is often used in science is process description. This kind of description describes the process chronologically or step by step. Let's go back to the science class.
Now let's see who can describe this process. Marvin, can you try?
Miss, first the sun gives energy to the plants which use it for photosynthesis. These plants are in turn eaten by herbivores or plant-eating animals. These herbivores are eaten by carnivores such as hawks and others. At the end of the food chain are the decomposers. These organisms feed on the decaying tissues of producers and consumers.
Okay.
Decomposers include bacteria, fungi, etc.
The student has just described the step-by-step process involved in the food chain. Another exercise that can be done is sequencing. The teacher shows the picture of the water cycle and then asks the class to rearrange the sentences and put them in order. Let's go back to the classroom and see how the teacher does this to the class.
Okay, here's another exercise for process description. Now look at the picture of this water cycle. And then look at the sentences. These sentences are not in order. Now what I want you to do is arrange them chronologically according to the picture. Can anyone do this? Jason. Clouds are formed. What comes after that? Okay, very good. Very good, Jason. Thank you. Now, who can read this in the right sequence? See. Okay, Alex, you seem very excited.
The sun radiates heat on the surface of bodies of water. Then 2, water molecules rise and evaporate. 3, rising vapor expands and cools. 4, water vapor condenses. 5, clouds are formed. 6, clouds move toward the land.
Here are some key points to remember in doing a process description. First, avoid describing steps in a process in a series of choppy, simple sentences. Second, to write a cohesive description of a process, sentences may be combined by using linkers and expressions showing the sequence of steps. Thus, for preceding events, use before and prior to. For following events, on the other hand, use after, until, then, and next. For simultaneous events, use at the same time as, during, and others. Third, to mark stages in the process, use first to mark opening or initial stage. Finally, to mark last or ultimate stage. Next, then, subsequently, meanwhile, to mark following stages. As, while, during, to mark simultaneous stages. Eventually, later, to mark events after some time.
Okay, can you use linkers in the description of the water cycle? Anyone? See. J.O.?
Well, in describing the water cycle, first, the sun radiates heat on the surface of bodies of water.
Okay.
Then, water molecules rise and evaporate. Meanwhile, rising vapor expands and cools. Subsequently, rain is precipitated. Eventually, the rain is absorbed by the soil. And finally, the rain flows back into the sea.
Aside from the rhetorical device of description, we have also comparison and contrast. There are two patterns of development: the opposing pattern or section by section, and the alternating pattern or point by point. In the opposing pattern, the characteristics of one are enumerated and then the characteristics of the other to which it is being compared. While in the alternating pattern, the two entities are compared side by side. Our example is paragraph 3 of the ecosystem text.
Okay, now I want you to go back to your readings on the ecosystem and read paragraph 3. Okay? Okay, now, can you pick out a sentence, okay, from the text which shows comparison and contrast? Anyone? Lloyd?
Organisms which are self-feeding are autotrophic, while organisms which feed on others are heterotrophic.
Okay, so from that, what word indicates comparison and contrast?
While.
Aside from the rhetorical devices of description, classification, comparison and contrast, we have cause and effect. Let us see how the teacher uses this device in her class. But before that, let's pause first for a few reminders. Stay tuned. Welcome once again. Let's go back to the classroom and find out how cause and effect can be effectively taught by the teacher.
Now let's read another text. This time it's about pollution. Look at your readings. Who can read this aloud? Venice?
Pollution is one of the harmful effects of industrialization. First, a small and unindustrialized town enjoys the freshness of its air and clearness of its rivers and lakes. Then, factories and commercial establishments are built. Different means of transportation fill the streets while the population steadily grows. Eventually, the factories and vehicles emit black smoke while the people in the commercial and residential areas dump their garbage in rivers and lakes, resulting in both air and water pollution. As a result, man is trapped in an unhealthy and polluted environment that threatens his life. But man has no one to blame for all these but himself.
Very good, Venice. Now, what is the function of the first sentence? Anyone? Kit? Yes?
It shows a cause and effect relationship.
So if it's a cause and effect relationship, what is the cause? Let's see, Miguel.
Well, the cause is industrialization.
Industrialization. What about the effect? Yes, Marv?
Pollution, ma'am.
Pollution. Now look at sentences 2, 3, and 4. What are their functions? Marvin?
Ma'am, they also show a chain of cause and effect relationships.
Show these relationships. Any idea? Alex?
Smoke from factories and commercial establishments and vehicles cause air pollution.
Any other? Yes,
Increasing
Marvin?
population leads to dumping of garbage in rivers and lakes.
Venice?
An unhealthy environment threatens his life.
Here are some key points to remember in the cause and effect rhetorical device. First, a passage describing a process or an action sequence generally represents a chain of cause-effect relationships. Second, the linkers after, before, next, and others mark time and action sequence. Third, so, thus, therefore, and results in mark cause-effect relationships. As a post-reading activity, the teacher can ask the students to do a collage on the interdependence of living and non-living things in the environment.
Bring out the cutout pictures from magazines I've asked you to bring in class. We have them now. Very good. Now I want you to make posters that show the interdependence between living things and non-living things. After you've made your posters, you have to mount them, and go around and see the other one, the other poster that the other group has done. Do not forget to write your comments, by the way. Now listen very carefully. The group with the best poster will receive a prize. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, so you do it now.
Do you think this is a sound practice? Let's listen once again to some specialists and find out what they have to say about these problems of teachers in other subjects like math, science, and history. We have with us today one of our reading specialists, the head of the reading department at the Philippine Normal University, Dr. Angelita Romero. Welcome to Constel English, Dr. Romero.
Thank you.
Dr. Romero, could you explain to our teacher viewers what exactly is meant by reading in the content areas?
Well,
probably we will start by explaining to them what we mean by content area. When we say content area, we refer to the different subjects in the curriculum. For example, science would be one. Another is social studies. Therefore, reading in the content areas would refer to lessons where the teacher systematically uses or selects content that will be used in teaching the different reading skills. Well, taking after your explanation, what happens then to reading in high school? Will this mean that it would also include biology, chemistry, or physics?
Definitely.
Oh. What happens, Dr. Romero, if the reading program is not content area oriented?
Well, the danger there is a teacher may just focus on skills. The ideal is that when a teacher teaches a skill in language, it is advisable that she selects content also that she will use in teaching that particular skill. And to do this successfully, I think she has to work in close coordination with the teacher in the content areas. You see, the teacher in the content areas have problems in making students read their science texts, their biology texts, or their chemistry texts. Now, the English teacher will be a very big help if the two of them, meaning the English teacher and the content teacher, will discuss the problems of students, so that while the content area teacher focuses on content, the English teacher will focus on teaching the skill and using the content in the content area subject.
That sounds like a very practical suggestion. Particularly where you have teachers in the content area and the language teacher collaborating with each other in the reading program. How would you sum up, Dr. Romero? Why would you then, is the reading program should be content area oriented?
Well, I would say that an ideal reading program should be content area oriented. And if the reading program is such, there will be a close working relationship between the English teacher and the content area teachers. The two of them will be working on solutions to help solve problems of students in communication. For example, in reading the science text, the two of them will work together in solving the problem with the students.
Okay. As a final note, Dr. Romero, could you give to our teacher viewers some reminders on how to go about with adapting a content area reading in the program?
Well, probably one reminder will be a very helpful one, and then the mechanics can be just discussed later by these teachers. And this big reminder is, I advise the communication arts teachers to confer or to work in close coordination with the subject area teachers. And in this working relationship, they should discuss the problems in communication of the students. The teacher of communication arts should teach the skills, making use of content in the different subject areas. I may say that a certain discipline like science may demand some specific literacy skills. Now, a material coming from a history textbook, for example, may demand another set of literacy skills. So it's really very ideal that these teachers should work closely together so that they will be able to identify specifically the reading or literacy problems of these students and work for a common solution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Romero. This has been a very informative session with you. I am sure our teacher viewers have learned a lot from this interview. Thank you. When we come back, we shall do a recap of today's lesson. Stay tuned. In this episode, you were made to, first, gain an understanding of the rationale behind content area reading. Second, observe sample content area reading lessons. Third, listen to some reminders to help you prepare reading lessons that are content area oriented. In the next episode, we shall talk about children's literature. So, this is your host, Ruth Toledo, saying goodbye and happy teaching.